think we'll go ahead and get started. So hi, welcome to our next webinar in our Summer of Automation series, Reduce Surplus Inventory and Unlock Hidden Capital with Sage Inventory Advisor or Netstock. My name is Sophia Pascuzzo. I'm the Customer Marketing Associate here at RKL eSolutions, and I have a few housekeeping items before we get started. All mics are turned off for this webinar, so if you have a question, please utilize the Q&A feature at the bottom of the screen. I will be moderating the Q&A throughout the presentation. This webinar will be recorded and available afterwards along with the slides, so look out for that email and that information within the next couple of days. I'm joined by Warren Owen, Vice President of Solution Consultants at Netstock. Warren has 20 plus years background in supply chain and 7 of those years at Netstock. He's had various roles, and any education out there, he's done it. So with that, I'll hand it over to you, Warren.
Well, great stuff. And thank you so much for having me. I'm delighted to take everyone through Sage Inventory Advisor today. To get things going, I got a couple of slides just to position who we are, what we do, and why we exist. And I think as the very first slide on the screen says, using analog tools to try and compete in a dynamic world is often the challenge that we help our customers or customers solve in the real world. Now, I think the world of data and the world of internet has moved so fast that being stuck on an Excel spreadsheet, it's not the wrong thing to do. It's just going to always get you to get it almost right or exactly wrong. Now, one of the key things that we also see, and Netstock obviously does a lot of research to try and see what happens in the world. As you know, if you look at some of these big logos and some of these big brand name companies, they're spending a lot of money trying to understand not only their own data, but also the data of their consumer, because the consumers are getting way more demanding and they want more, they want a cheaper price. And obviously being, again, on a manual tool is just going to give you a disadvantage. Now, what is Sage Inventory Advisor? Sage Inventory Advisor is a bolt-on inventory management and optimization suite for various instances of Sage ERPs. Now, obviously, you'll see there's 2 excluded there, Sage 500 and Intact. It doesn't mean that we don't connect to those. It just means that I haven't added them. But essentially, we connect to any Sage ERP. And how the system works, or the Inventory Advisor system works, is that it gets data seamlessly out of the ERP, applies a layer of classification policy to what needs to happen, and then what goes back into the ERP is a purchase order, transfer order, or work order. So that's how the system works. Now, the fundamental thing is, and I get asked this question on a daily basis, at least maybe 20 times, why is inventory so hard to plan? Well, the simple answer is that you've got every single thing in the world working against the plan that you've set. You've got volatility in demand, you've got unreliability in supply, and then as we saw a couple of years ago, a little virus comes through town that just completely obliterates any plan that you've got. So inventory is a high-risk asset that has got a lot of things working against it. Now, for you, I've obviously put this slide up here. I often use this. I think a lot of us enjoyed this in the pandemic lockdown, but this is really true. I think what we hear from a Netstock perspective on a daily basis, that a lot of suppliers and distributors, especially in the United States, are sitting with a lot of stuff. They've got a lot of capital tied up in inventory, and they are overinvested purely based on the fact that there was panic buying, there was fear of not getting supply, and now a lot of companies are sitting in a position saying, well, how can I actually free this up? Now, to talk about freeing inventory up, we first need to understand why we hold inventory. What is the actual function of inventory? What is the purpose of inventory? And on this slide, you can very quickly see that there's all sorts of risks that exist in your supply chain, be it from supply to your warehouse, to your customer, your supplier's supplier, your customer's customer. In various stages of your supply chain, there's a risk to availability. And one of the key things that we use, or one of the key buffers that we use to hedge against that, is to have things like safety stock or insurance inventory, or whatever you want to call that extra bit of inventory, just to make sure that you can hedge that risk. And that often results in overstocking. Now, to make this problem a little bit worse is that often you find that in most companies is that some companies will actually be overstocked as well as understocked at the same time. And this simple graph that I use, it's a little bit old, but I still get a lot of value out of explaining this concept, is that you'll find that there's often items that are needing more inventory, items that are actually overstocked. And what you find is the water level in blue is often the set and forget safety stock number of a week or 2 weeks or 6 months or a year, or whatever that number is that somebody came up with, saying that this is the level of safety stock that we need. again, you're going to find that if you go and apply the appropriate buffer or the appropriate safety stock to each and every item within that particular season, you should, in theory, be able to actually give each and every item the right amount of buffer for the right amount of risk. And that's one of the reasons why a lot of the customers implementing Sage Inventory Advisor get a lot of savings in the first 6 months. Typically, those savings are between 15 to 20%, often more, because a lot of the overinvestment or the over, capitalization in inventory is what we free up in the first 6 months. Now, the other typical problem that results in inventory exploding is that there's a lot of stakeholders in the organization that use inventory to achieve their goals. There's really three things that you do with inventory that you can grow. It's revenue, margin, or volume. And all of these stakeholders from sales and finance and marketing and operations, they use the same inventory to get there, but often they don't communicate in the same language or the same tool. What this tool enables you to do is give a common platform for these stakeholders to communicate on a single platform while setting the goals and also understanding the risks that are preventing you from getting there or that may pose a challenge. Sage Inventory Advisor is a great platform to go and model what it will look like to increase your fill rate, increase your customer service, try and have a 40% growth year on year. Well, what does that mean in inventory? And ultimately, once you have that, you can then model those inventory risks that are working against you to come up with the ideal plan. Now, some of the ROIs that we get, this is just some of the key things we certainly see in North America, is that a lot of our customers will go and say, wow, I never realized that was what was happening. Because they're so overwhelmed with these multiple layers and tabs in Excel spreadsheets, they often don't get to see the problem in the dimension to know what to do about it. So increased visibility is one of the very first things that we hear from a lot of the customers going to Sage Inventory Advisor. The second one is improved fill rates, just having the ability to sell more, having the right stuff at the right place and the right quantity at the right time at the right place or the right price actually means that you're going to sell more. So having a fill rate increase of up to 15% is huge. You're doing the same stuff, but you're getting more sales out of it or getting more return out of it. The third and probably the most key one is just optimizing your stock level, having what you should have and having the ability to identify what you don't need so that you can either go and liquidate that, put that on a promotion, or have some mechanism to get rid of it. The fourth one is also very important, just optimizing your ordering. In the tool, which I'll show in a demo in a couple of minutes, the tool has the ability to actually plan each and every item each and every day, whilst giving you a rolling 365-day into the future projection as to what the levels will be, when do you need to order, what do you need to order, and understanding ordering constraints like MOQs or MOVs. And then lastly, with having a sophisticated forecasting engine built into Sage Inventory Advisor, we have the ability to slowly over time improve those forecast accuracies, identify those outliers, and really get the clever people in the organization to work towards optimization. So in a nutshell, that is really what we're going to be talking about today. Some of the key concepts, there's going to be a lot of things flowing around. We're going to be doing some demand planning, supply planning, a lot of the dashboard stuff. And again, just as a reminder, the session is recorded, so you can also access this if there's some things that we go over a little bit fast. Now, to transition to the software, just give me a moment there. Right, to log into the software, what you'll see here is essentially a fully cloud-based application. So Sage Inventory Advisor is built from the ground up, and it's also, from a company perspective, supported with an ISO 27001 certification. Now, for you as the consumer or the user, what does that mean? It means that Netstock is one of the highest information security certification companies, which all of your key competitive data will be looked after, will be securely stored and handled in a very, very careful manner. Now, looking at the dashboard, the tool from a commercial perspective gives you unlimited users, unlimited locations, and unlimited SKUs. So it's got no barrier to expanding this as wide and as far in the organization as you need. And again, as you can see here, my user profile right now is a system admin, but you also have the ability to specify roles for certain people buying, certain people planning, so that you can also lock certain things down and not show that to everybody in the organization. Right now, I've got a couple of locations in this demo. You can see I've got LA, Chicago, and I've also got a total virtual consolidation of all my inventory across all my branches. Now, the dashboard is a very powerful yet simple way in these 9 blocks to tell me very quickly what is happening in this organization. Stock holding, excess and surplus order blocks tells me financially what is happening in this business. And more importantly, it tells me what I have at an aggregated number. So right now it's $10.3 million and what the system says I should have. So very clearly it says I've got a gap between what I have and what I should have. Now I can obviously see that there's excess. Most organizations will from time to time have excess. Right now I can see that I've got $4 million and that spans over 2,304 items. And to make things a little bit worse, I've even got surplus orders, which for us in this environment is orders that I've placed that are on its way to this location, which I might no longer need in that quantity. Demand might have slowed down, or something might have happened in the business that meant a new item was launched and I no longer need those old items or those other items. From a service perspective, you can see target fill rate or fill rate, stock out, and potential stock out. And this really is how you're making this available. What is the service you're deriving out of these items? You can see it's very, very clever that the system tells me what is the achieved target fill rate. So at an aggregated level across all my items, across all my location, what is the fill rate that I'm actually achieving? And very clearly, the system also has a target that it's driving you towards, as well as giving you a nice benchmark by either weeks, days, or months, telling you how you're performing. I normally call this the sanity check, just if I'm doing the right stuff. You can see that there's obviously a erosion of fill rate through stock out and potential stock out. And then lastly, on the dashboard, you can see the system would always give you a blended average of stock turns, as well as giving you the capability of having an item by item breakdown to really go and see whether these assets that you're investing in are giving you a return or whether you should rationalize them out. It does identify new items. Right now, my demo don't have any new items in the ERP, but let's say you do add a new item or load a new item in the ERP, that would automatically flow through to Sage Inventory Advisor, and you will then be alerted that that item does need a forecast of demand or some sort of plan put into place. And then lastly, on the dashboard, you do have an item status breakdown that just tells you what is the nice mix of the items that I have. You can see excess and surplus orders are by far the biggest problem in my environment right now. And it tells me that only $625,000 of this $10 million assortment that I have is really actually okay. The rest of them in all states of pain. Now, the system does use classification. So as you know, as any traditional inventory planning system, the system does use classification. Sage Inventory Advisor uses a 2-dimensional classification, which is ABC, which is high, medium, and low value. And then we also have the ability to look at velocity, because often we find that the most expensive item doesn't always mean that it's going to be the fastest moving item. And then lastly, another powerful visualization is seeing these items, seeing the matrix broken down by understanding where these items are focused, or where the concentration of counters, where my concentration of stock value is, where things like excess arise. And if I want to get down into those items, I can very quickly click on those items and go and see what the system says I have versus what I should have. And from there, I can also go down to an item level to try and understand why this item is where it is. Now, while we're on the item level, you'll see that the system gives you a stock, a SKU number coming from the ERP. It actually tells you that there's a description and which warehouse this item is represented, while giving you the ability to see this item in other locations. So again, with having unlimited locations, you can have this in multiple places throughout your supply chain. You'll see there's a lot of key information coming from the ERP. So you'll see that there's cost, selling price, volume, and the system uses these things to, again, predict your profitability, your stock turns, and also the way that you order. Often you might order from your suppliers in containers and pallets and boxes, but you're selling them in eaches. And that is something that Inventory Advisor understands really well. You'll see that there's the policy calculating how the system does the order up to, what is my inventory position, what is the projected stock turns. And then one thing that the system does really well is have a dynamic safety stock calculation. Again, understanding these inputs, understanding your risks, and then giving you the ability to work with that. Now I'm going to flip to another item and unpack the demand plan on this system. So as you can see, with each and every item, there will be a very high level overview of your historical sales history, and then what the system will go and create as a projection into the future. Now, to show that, if I scroll down, each and every item will have the sales history that's available in the ERP and a baseline forecast that would automatically be generated using a tournament approach, where there's multiple forecasting algorithms that the system will then go and choose which one is the best for this item and apply that. You'd also have the ability over time to then go and see where you are today, looking back in the past, to try and understand what the actual was, what the forecast was, what the actual was, and what the variance between those numbers are. And again, the system uses this risk input to then go and determine whether it should carry more safety stock to hedge against this volatile demand profile. The system does a very good job of understanding supplier performance. What is the planning lead time in your ERP? What is the actual lead time, looking at it from order by order and measuring that lead time? And then lastly, what the system will give you is the ability to project every single day what your closing stock position is and what the future holds. And this is one of my personal favorites, because you can very quickly see where you are. Right now, my closing stock position on this item is 7,900 units. My model actually says I should be on 527. So I'm grossly overinvested, looking at where the line starts compared to the gray area or the ideal operating zone for this item. The system has automatically gone and recommended future orders there to say that on July 27th, it's going to recommend 1645, and it's expecting that to arrive on September 10th. Now, again, as I go and change these things, the system will remodel this to tell me that there might be an impact on that, or there might be a delay on the ERP. There's also the ability to put comments into the tool. So if I'm working on a specific deal with a customer and I want people to know about this, I can very easily add those notes in there. And as you look at the dashboard, some of these notes will feature on the dashboard so somebody can actually go and see exactly what those notes are. Why did Warren do the things that he did? So that's pretty much the classification, the policy, and at the item level planning. The next thing I want to transition to is how the system recommends orders in the order screen. Now, again, each and every item will have a rolling projection into the future. Doesn't matter if you've got 100 items or 100,000 items, the tool will continuously look at that every single day to try and recommend an order, or whether you need to have an order for that item. Right now, you can see, looking at the top there, I can order from my suppliers, I can order from my distribution centers. And because Sage Inventory Advisor is a multi-echelon inventory optimization tool, it will continuously try and understand where things need to be and then go and recommend those orders. Right now, you can see that Alien Manufacturing and Engineering is the very first order that pops up there. Right now, if I look at this, I've got outstanding purchase orders there. My default look forward day for the supplier is 14 days. And right now, a 14-day order will be $95,000. A couple of key things here. If you're dealing with suppliers far, far away, you might be constrained with things like a new year or some sort of constraint where you might need to buy more than what you would like. So in this case, you can also go and model the order to try and see what a look forward order will be. And immediately the system has now recalculated that to be $153,000. Now, using Sage Inventory Advisor, you would essentially create your purchase orders in the tool. So you would have the pre-built capability of confining or refining the purchase order, having a look at what that is, maybe going and updating the lead time or the estimated arrival time, talking to the supplier, and having the system seamlessly integrated. You would then have the ability to download this back to Sage ERP, and that would then go through the formal process of allocating a purchase order, work order, or transfer number, and then from there allowing the user to go and execute on that. Now, there's a couple of other things within the tool that we've introduced quite recently. We've introduced an AI engine. Obviously, a lot of our customers have said, what about us? ChatGPT is doing some amazing things. What can you do for us? So we have built in an AI engine that if you really don't want to go through all the information on the dashboard, you could ask the engine to find your opportunities. Now, the cool thing about this is that depending on your role in the organization, it's going to start calibrating itself towards what's important for you. Right now, if I go and say, was this useful or not useful, it's starting to train the model to find me the things that are important to me. And right now, from this engine, it's not using a third-party engine that's completely owned by Netstock. I can go into that item and I can execute the recommendation that the AI engine has given me. Now, a couple of additional things that we introduced: an executive dashboard that gives you a lot of insight in terms of where things are breaking or falling apart. You know, if the system recommends an order, why did the user not execute exactly on that order? Why did they end up ordering less or more? So you put a lot of analytics in here, not to penalize any users, but to coach them in doing better behavior. And then lastly, the system also has a very nice aggregated projection that says, based on the policy that you have, based on the classification that you have and based on the things that you want to achieve. If you put this thing on autopilot, where are you today? Where will you be in 12 months? And there you can very quickly see this particular demo says I've got the opportunity to reduce my inventory holding by 29%. It is still mathematics, but let's even say cut that in half. It still gives you a nice 15% or plus minus 14% ability to reduce my overall holding while increase my stock turns and things like that. I can see my overall inventory position by month. Where am I today? Where will I be going? And one that I really enjoy is actually looking at my replenishment. What will my spend be over the next couple of months? Do I have enough money? Do I need to free up capital? What sort of plans are available to me? So in closing, Sage Inventory Advisor, again, is not a demand planning tool. It's not a supply planning tool. It's actually both. It's a balance of both that understands what you like to achieve, and it does a demand plan as well as a supply plan and projects the future state of each and every item, each and every day, and obviously populates the dashboard for the user to then consume and take next actions on. Now, some of the things I also want to talk through, going back to the presentation, is some of the feedback that we've got. Now, Sage Inventory Advisor is typically live between 8 to 12 weeks. So it's very, very rapid. Because we already got the integration very successfully honed down between the ERP and the planning platform, that for us is the easiest part of the journey. There is a nice continuous improvement data dashboard that helps our customers and users find gaps in the data and fix that. And then once you do all of those things, you get phenomenal results where you can see some of these feedback or testimonials that we've got where, and this obviously we get a lot of, where people have just really been satisfied with both the implementation, the results, and just the overall cost. Sage Inventory Advisor is one of the lower cost, more price effective sort of solutions in the market. And again, you'll get a lot of results very, very quickly using the platform. With that, I will hand back to Sophia.
Great, thank you, Warren. So we actually do have a couple questions here from the Q&A, if you don't mind going through those.
Certainly.
How does Netstock compare to other supply chain software in terms of price?
Okay, good one. So again, Sage Inventory Advisor is one of the lower tier cost items. It doesn't cost you a couple of $1 million, and it doesn't give you every single thing that you probably will never use. So we often find that when you buy these big solutions from the big publishers, you often buy a lot of stuff that you don't use. With Inventory Advisor, we give you exactly what to get you off a manual planning process, a very sort of automated platform. And we also know that there will be a time that you might need to migrate to something bigger, which the company does have some more enterprisey sort of tools available if you want to migrate. So from a price perspective, it's on the lower tier. It's an annual agreement with monthly payments, and there's all sorts of incentives that we run from time to time, which even makes it more competitive.
Great, thank you. And another one here, how do I start my journey with Netstock?
So it's always an interesting one. So we do approximately about 1,000 demos a year across multiple places. So Netstock obviously is a global business with head office in Australia, South Africa, Germany, UK, and obviously our biggest territory, which is the US. And often that question comes up, like, how do I even start the journey? And it's almost like acknowledging that you need something and acknowledging that there's a better way to do it would probably be the very first step. We accept that the three things you need for the solution to work is people, process, and technology. And we often find that the customers do have the people, they do have the process, but they don't have the underpinning technology that brings it together. So really getting started is either reaching out to Sophia or her team, or simply just going to the netstock.com website and just having a demo, just have a look at what it can do for your environment. And always remember that when you do that, please record your partner. It's always very, very important for Netstock to look after the partner channel. That's our biggest growth area. So we always want to know about who you're dealing with, who's your partner, and that would probably be the easiest way to get going.
Great. And I'm just going to pause for a few more seconds if we have any last minute questions in the Q&A or the chat. Okay, well, I'm not seeing anything. So thank you all again for attending today's webinar. Thank you, Warren, for the quick effective tips and overview of Netstock. Our next webinar in the summer series is Avalara with 5 steps to getting compliance done right and avoiding an audit for your clients. on Wednesday, July 26th. So we hope to see you there. And thanks again for attending.